why are Trump officials moving into military bases? Why? The Atlantic reports senior Trump officials, Stephen Miller and Marco Rubio, have moved into military base housing in D.C. You know, the kind of historic homes that normally go to top uniformed officers, as they should. Just like, that's not a metaphor. Actual houses on Fort McNair's General's Row. And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, remember her? She's been living rent-free in the Coast Guard Commandant's residence at Joint Base. Yeah. The Commandant's house, while the service scrambles to justify it. Even the Washington Post says insiders are not thrilled. And why would they be thrilled? Meanwhile, the Pentagon's running a barracks housing task force because troops are dealing with mold, broken plumbing, and shortages. So soldiers wait while political appointees get keys to the nicest places on bases. Also, remember the 136 or 7,000 in upgrades for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's official residence in Fort McNair. So the Army paid for it. Raising a bit more transparency questions, don't you think? Just bottom line, when taxpayers pay for military housing and it becomes a refuge for politicians to avoid protests, is that supporting the troops? That's cutting the line. Who approved these moves? What's the rent? Is there rent? And who was supposed to get these homes? If you think military housing should prioritize military families, share this.
Meanwhile, back in Washington, we talk about a sign of the times. Administration officials increasingly are facing so many very serious and violent threats that they find that the only option they have is to actually move their families and themselves onto military bases. Here's the list of some of the notable acts of political motivated violence. Of course, you had June 2022, the plot that was thwarted against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. You had the Paul Pelosi was attacked in October of 2022. Obviously, you have the assassination attempts on President Trump, both of them. You have the arson at Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's home.
Yeah, and you have, of course, the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I think the Charlie Kirk assassination was such a shock to, especially to anybody who is in public life, that you could go with security to a university and simply have open debate, and you get shot in such a horrific way in front of college students. I'm still not over it. I'm just surprised how in the liberal media it's just kind of just gone away. Here at a lot of conservatives and, of course, at Fox News, we have not forgotten. We will not forget. But it has just gone off the pages like, oh, just another day. But the people who are not forgetting, especially, are those in the public eye. And so one of them is Stephen Miller. This is The Atlantic saying Stephen Miller joined a growing list of senior Trump administration and political appointees, at least 6 by our count, living in Washington area military housing, where they are shielded not just from potential violence, but also from protests. It is an ominous marker of the nation's polarization, to which the Trump administration has itself contributed. I don't know where they got that from, that some of those top public servants have felt a need to separate themselves from the public. These civilian officials can now depend on the U.S. military to augment their personal security. But so many have made the move that they are now straining the availability of housing for the nation's top uniformed officers. So The Atlantic really worried about housing for officers They don't seem to care about the fact that
Well,
military aren't getting paid during the shutdown, but okay.
So it's good on the Atlantic for pointing this out, but they do miss the point, Rachel. I mean, look, I cannot remember a time in my adult life that the threat of political violence was higher. And that is very sobering. And to see, we've had in the past some defense secretaries, Bob Gates, Jim Mattis, live on military bases. That's not unusual. But now, with people like Stephen Miller moving into the military because of threats on his life, it is akin to, in 2023, the mayor of Tijuana had to move on to a Mexican military base because the cartel was openly saying, we are going to kill you. These are the threats that Stephen Miller and Katie Miller and their children are getting. And it's really a moment that seems unprecedented in terms of the political violence in our country. I
think the kid part is a really important point. I mean, I know Jen Hegseth and Pete Hegseth made that move onto the base. Kind of made sense. They're part of the military, but also the kind of freedom their kids can have from harassment and the safety they need now because of this very violent environment we're in.
Yeah, indeed.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Guys, so they made their choice, they built this chaos, and now instead of standing strong, they are running, hiding behind military walls, guarded gates, and soldiers who swore to protect the people, not politicians. Wait till you see how deep this fear goes. I'm Tiana, and you're watching Tiana's React. Let's dive in and see people's reactions to this. But before we do, please do well to like, share, and of course, subscribe to keep the channel moving.
Why are Trump officials moving into military bases and out of their homes?
Did you know that top Trump officials are now living on U.S. military bases? Yeah, civilian advisors living on U.S. United States military bases. They moved out of their Washington, D.C. homes to live on military bases. Why, you're probably asking? Let's break this all down. It all started after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And soon after that, protesters started targeting the White House advisor, Stephen Miller, and his wife, Katie. Protesters then got outside his neighborhood in Virginia, said that he was like one of the mustache people. And now the Millers, alongside with at least 6 other top Trump officials, are quietly moving into secure military housing across Washington, D.C. These people include Kristi Noem, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, and others. And these houses are usually reserved for generals, and so they were pushed out to put in these political appointees, and experts say that this is like the first time we've ever seen something like this. But the reason for all this is quite clear. The threats are escalating because after Charlie Kirk's death, we've seen the Trump administration label Antifa a domestic terrorist group, despite no legal framework on that label. And with ICE agents going through cities, with the National Guard going and being put into cities, and other things happening, including, well, a government shutdown, people losing SNAP benefits, people are getting angry of the people who are making the decisions. And look, in history, we have seen sometimes these figures go into these bases for a temporary thing, but now it looks permanent, which should show you something. That if your people are that angry with you, that you have to live full-time at a military base, clearly you're doing something wrong. And there's more to this story. The Atlantic put out a great article called "The Top Trump Military Officials Are Moving into Military Bases," and I would suggest you read it. It is quite interesting. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on this, though, so please do share my videos and follow me for more.
When high-ranking officials start relocating to military bases, it's not a drill. It's about to hit the fan. Sources close to the Trump administration say key officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, have quietly relocated to military bases for their own safety. Officially, it's about civil unrest. Unofficially, it looks a lot more like they're posturing for a rapid path to secure bunkers if things spiral out of control. So why the sudden fear? Could it be that millions of Americans are set to lose access to SNAP benefits tomorrow? That means no food money for families already stretched to the breaking point. When that happens, frustration turns to chaos fast. Even the possibility of protest, looting, and maybe even some burning cities. Sources inside the administration say it's preparing to declare a nationwide state of emergency if violence erupts. Quick reaction National Guard detachments are already being trained in every single state, and they could be mobilized in less than 60 days. And just when it couldn't get any stranger, President Trump confirmed plans to resume nuclear testing for the first time in 33 years. When pressed by reporters, he said it plainly. Yes, we're going to be conducting nuclear detonations. Now, this could be a coincidence, but when officials start moving to bases, the economy's collapsing and nuclear tests are back on the table, it might be time to ask what exactly they're preparing for.
We have some big news right now. The Atlantic is exclusively reporting that senior Trump administration officials are living on military housing, taking up housing from senior military leaders, and they're literally running out of housing because Trump administration officials, from Stephen Miller to Marco Rubio to others, are living on military housing, and it's unprecedented. There has never been so many administration officials living in these military housing. And the reason why is because they're fearful from protests and more. Previously, we knew that Kristi Noem was living in these military housing installations, but now Stephen Miller is, Marco Rubio is as well. There's no record of ever so many political appointees living in these military installations. It's literally being dubbed the, quote, unofficial green zone, according to The Atlantic, because of how many Trump officials there are living there. And you know who's paying for it? You, taxpayers. Spread the word. Read the full article on The Atlantic's website. Follow along, stay up to date on all the news that you need to know about. I will have much more to come very soon.
All right, y'all, time to strap in because things are getting strange here. Here's a wild headline for your ass. Senior appointees from the Donald Trump orbit. Yes, I'm talking heavy hitters like Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, Marco Rubio. They're doing what now? Oh, yeah, they're moving into military housing on actual U.S. military bases. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, though. Did I just wander into a reboot of Arrested Development General's Row edition? Because yes, General's Row is now more like MAGA's new zip code. So here's the deal. They say it's for security, protests, threats, yada, yada, yada. But let's be real. When your driveway comes with barbed wire and missiles maybe nearby, you've definitely left the mother-loving hood. Meanwhile, real generals are like, excuse me, we need to sleep somewhere too, you know? Housing shortage much? So what's the big picture here? 2 words. Power move. It's a physical claim to territory. Definitely symbolic, don't you think? Look, we're not just in DC, we're inside the fortress now too. But here's the flip side. When civilian officials start living where the Army high command used to live, lines kind of start getting blurry. Let's be real. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene had something to say about this on Bill Maher's show. Take a look at this ish.
A number of the members of the administration are now living on a military base. What? You didn't know this?
No.
Stephen Miller just moved there. Kristi Noem lives on a military base. J.D. Vance. Oh, no. Rubio. Pete Hegseth. I mean, for people who love America so much, they seem to be scared of it.
I'm one of those people they call a conspiracy theorist. When I hear things like that, I'm like, what do they know that I don't know?
Well,
you see? When we all start to agree with somebody who thinks a Havana Gita ringtone is playing on repeat on lasers out in space, then you know something is definitely off, baby. But in all seriousness, my call to action for you is this. Watch closely. Because this isn't just about who lives where. It's about who's operating inside the house, not just knocking on the door.
So you can hide from the crowd, you can silence the truth, but when a nation's conscience wakes up, no base is safe. And this is just the beginning. Well, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Please do well to like and of course subscribe to keep the channel moving. Till next time.